Hey, good evening. This is midnight or so on Sunday, and this is Warning 616 Two Wolves reporting from my other home. Homeland Chief warns of long fire season. Janet Napolitano herself, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, paid a visit to NIFC, that's Firefighter for National Interagency Fire Center in Boise, just this last Tuesday. There's some very mixed messages going on, and I want you to pay attention to this. I'm going to put this up on my channel in a day or two, but I'm leaving the weather share fire warning up because the temperatures are climbing higher. We're having increasing thunderstorms and really basically no rain, high winds. Dutch has covered this really well, that 42 of the 48 states have got wild weather, and that includes Idaho. It seems that Two Wolves has exchanged earthquakes and tsunamis and radiation levels for the danger of wildland fire. So don't be surprised. I'm just going to make another prophecy. Don't be surprised if I have quite a story for you at some point this summer in regard to wildland fire locally. Idaho Mountain Express, Wednesday edition, http://www.mountainexpress.com. The Idaho Mountain Express, one of two papers in the area. Actually, this first appeared on Wednesday, but then it shows up again here online yesterday, Friday, July 6th, by Greg Stahl, Express staff writer. Homeland Chief warns of long fire season. Population growth credited as part of this year's destructive wildfires. Minimize your go to my channel and minimize everything a little bit. And I've actually pasted two pictures I took depicting the area and the urban interface with the wildland, showing how dry everything is. And actually, those were taken 2 weeks ago. It's worse now. So my background will help to illustrate this story. So have a look at it. The nation's top official responsible for disaster response visited Boise Tuesday and said it's time for Westerners to brace for a long, hot wildfire season. Here's Janet Napolitano, Secretary of Homeland Security. We know who she is. At NIFC on Boise Tuesday afternoon. Standing with her are Secretary of Agriculture, I can say Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack, and U.S. Fire Administrator Ernest Mitchell. Photo by Greg Stahl. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano spent Tuesday afternoon at the National Interagency Fire Center in Boise, where the nation's leading fire commanders and scientists briefed her and Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack on the conditions that have led to one of the most destructive wildfire seasons in years. Idaho Governor Butch Otter joined the briefing. We were looking at the extensive amount of interagency cooperation that goes into planning for fire season, making decisions about the allocations of resources like hotshot crews, identifying places that we need to look forward to fire on. Well, we'll come back to that sentence in a second. Where we can prevent a very small fire from being a large fire, and just seeing how it plugs together, she said. Now, I know she's very well spoken, so this is probably not a direct quote, but I did want to call attention to this. Identifying places that we need to look forward to fire on. Oh, there's something for the family to think about. Before the briefing, Napolitano sat down for an exclusive interview with the Idaho Mountain Express. And that's encapsulated here. When we talk about disaster preparedness, we always say prepare for the worst and hope for the best, she said. I would suggest that for people living in this area, now is the time. Now is a really good time if you haven't done it to get prepared. Okay, paying attention to who is saying this, I agree. Everyone in Idaho, especially southern Idaho, the whole Intermountain region, and I would say southern BC and Alberta as well, in particular. That would include parts of Wyoming, northern Utah, eastern Oregon. I would suggest that for people living in this area, now is the time. Now is a really good time if you haven't done it to get prepared. As fire season moves north into Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho this July and August, it's advice that she hopes Westerners will take seriously. According to NIFC Public Affairs Officer Ken Frederick, so far this spring and summer, 1,054 homes have been lost to wildfires, most of them in the West. Colorado has lost 622. This goes into detail, this tragedy. 254 in New Mexico. Another 66 homes burnt last week in the Charlotte fire in Pocatello. That's not very far from here. 66 homes in the Charlotte fire in Pocatello. And it's only early July, the traditional beginning of fire season in the Northern Rockies and Pacific Northwest. Except for the huge loss of property and 2 lives in Colorado, this year's fire statistics are actually close to long-term averages year to date, Napolitano said. Though the number of fires across the country is actually less than last year, and the acreage burned is less than last year, the number of structures and infrastructure burnt is significantly higher, and that's in part because of where the fires have been and the growth of the wildland-urban interface. But it's also because of course, I can tell you, because of the climate change, quote unquote, the extreme wild weather, as Dutch has been profiling it, so better than anyone else can do. Yay, Dutch. And of course, lots of beetle kill, a lot of understory, really poor timber management practices. There's just, things are just set to explode. For those living in the interfaces, places like the Wood River Valley, that's here, where public lands and communities converge, Napolitano recommends creating defensible space by removing flammable materials close to homes or businesses, using fire-resistant building materials and treatments, or just, old-fashioned plow. If you live out in the countryside, plow and till the land, a quarter acre at least around your land and around your buildings, like the pioneers used to do. There's a certain amount of unpredictability with fire, she said, but we're looking at a long, hot summer. We're looking at many areas of the American West that didn't get the amount of rain or snowpack they normally get, and that includes northern Utah and southern Idaho. Very little snow all winter. We're looking at a lot of bark beetle death in the forests and a lot of excess fuel in the forest, so the conditions are ripe for fire. So she knows her stuff in this area. But this is another interesting statement. So once again, Gamli, if I could asterisk, I would. I need to figure out how to highlight things. Here she says, that means we are really leaning forward in terms of how FEMA can intersect with the Forest Service, the BLM, and others who have the lead in terms of fighting the fires themselves. Okay, and this story goes on to talk about her background as a Westerner, what she's experienced in regard to fire. The article concludes by stating that Idaho fire season should be normal, but I know a lot about this fire science, and Two Wolves is going to tell you I don't think so. So pray for the Intermountain West on both sides of the border in regard to the threat of fire. This is interesting. We know that FEMA is getting involved in taking over public lands such as parks, Homeland Security. I just did another video tonight, sort of along the same lines. Pray, and if you live in the Intermountain West, in either Canada or the States, the Rockies in particular, be prepared. Have more than one exit route. Keep gas in your car. Have a way out. If you can't drive out, have a defensive perimeter. Okay, Two Wolves out.